Small wrists. Your wrist size is basically a rough indicator of your bone structure. See, smaller wrists usually mean smaller joints and a lighter frame overall. And that matters because your frame sets the ceiling for how much muscle mass you can realistically carry. Experts in physique and strength analysis often use wrist measurements as a proxy for skeletal frame size. A smaller wrist usually means a narrower overall structure, which limits how much muscle your frame can support. Larger bones give more surface area for muscle attachment. There's also a performance side to this. Smaller wrists often mean weaker wrists and forearms, which can limit you in heavy presses like bench press, overhead press, and even exercises like dips. So next time you feel sad about not hitting that PR on bench, take a look at your wrists. Pectus excavatum, often known as funnel chest or sunken chest. It's a congenital deformity where the breastbone and ribs grow inward, creating a noticeable dent or hollow in the center of the chest. Pectus excavatum is actually the most common chest wall deformity, occurring in roughly 1 in every 300 to 400 people, and it's more common in males. The exact cause isn't fully understood. Now here's the important part for bodybuilding. This isn't just a cosmetic lack of pec muscle. The bone structure itself is different. Because the sternum is pushed inward, no amount of bench pressing or chest flies can fully fix that indentation because the skeleton is the limiting factor and not the muscles. Some people with pectus excavatum also experience reduced lung capacity, lower endurance, or less effective upper body positioning, which can make heavy compound lifts feel harder. Does that mean you can't build a strong muscular chest? Absolutely not. Many people with this condition make huge progress in the gym, and you can definitely flatten out that hole. But these genetics do give you a big setback in my opinion. Bad chest insertions. Another genetic factor that can seriously affect your chest aesthetics is having bad chest insertions. More specifically, having a wide chest gap. Now, this comes down to anatomy. Your pectoralis major, the main chest muscle, attaches from your sternum and clavicle to your upper arm. The exact shape, length, and position of those muscle insertions are genetic. You can grow the muscle, but you cannot change where it attaches to the bone, and that's where the problem lies. If your pec insertions sit wider apart, you'll naturally have a bigger gap in the middle of your chest. Even with a lot of muscle mass, you might never get that tight, full inner chest like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example. This is why two people can train chest the same way, get equally strong on bench press, and still look completely different shirtless. High calf insertions. One of the most frustrating genetics in bodybuilding is high calf insertions. What people call high insertions is basically a short calf muscle belly with a longer Achilles tendon. So the thick part of the calf sits higher up on the lower leg. If you're born with a shorter muscle belly, you're fighting a visual disadvantage. Even with good hypertrophy, your calves may still look less full compared to someone whose muscle belly runs lower toward the ankle. Calves are also built for walking, standing, and endurance, especially the soleus, which is known to be heavily slow twitch dominant in many people. This can make calves stubborn for pure size gains compared to other muscle groups. Research on the calf muscle tendon unit also highlights how the muscle fascicles and the elastic Achilles tendon work together during movement, meaning a lot of calf function is optimized for efficiency, not aesthetics. Narrow clavicles. One of the most frustrating genetics discussions in bodybuilding is narrow clavicles, basically the length of your collarbone and how far apart your shoulders start before any muscle is added. Clavicle length is a skeletal feature you're born with and, like bone structure in general, can't be changed after skeletal maturity. It's simply part of your frame. When your clavicles are naturally shorter, your shoulders begin closer together. So even if you build muscle, the initial foundation for shoulder width is tighter compared to someone with longer clavicles. This makes it harder to achieve that classic V-taper look with a broad upper frame, a shape many associate with aesthetic bodybuilding. Anthropometric measurements use terms like biochromial breadth, the distance between the outermost points of the shoulder bones, and narrow variants here are genetic. Your muscles still grow normally, you just have less skeletal canvas adding muscle. That doesn't mean you're doomed. Many athletes with narrower clavicles still build phenomenal physiques by prioritizing lateral deltoids, traps, and lats to visually widen the upper body. Short torso. Short torso with long arms is another genetic trait that can be a real disadvantage for bodybuilding and certain strength sports. This comes down to anthropometry, which is the study of human body proportions. Limb length and torso length significantly affect how muscles look and how exercises feel biomechanically. From a performance standpoint, long arms create a mechanical disadvantage in pressing movements like the bench press and overhead press due to increased range of motion and less favorable lever arms at the shoulder and elbow joints. This means more work per rep and often lower absolute strength numbers compared to shorter-armed lifters. Interestingly, this same body type is often considered ideal for the deadlift. Longer arms reduce the distance the bar has to travel from the floor to lockout, while a shorter torso allows for a more upright hip and back position at the start. This improves mechanical leverage at the hip joint and can make deadlifting feel more natural and efficient compared to lifters with long torsos and short arms. So while this structure can be a setback for bodybuilding aesthetics and pressing strength, it can be a clear advantage in pulling movements like the deadlift. Wide waist. A lot of people assume a wide waist is just body fat, but that's not always true. Your waist can look wide because of skeletal structure. Things like a wider pelvis, often discussed as bi-iliac breadth, and a larger rib cage set the baseline frame you're working with. You can diet down and get lean, but you can't shrink bone. And when your waist is naturally wide, it directly hurts the illusion of a V-taper, because what looks impressive on stage is the shoulder to waist ratio. Even in actual anthropometry research on bodybuilders, ratios like shoulder width to pelvis width show up as key proportion markers. If your pelvis is wide, your proportions start at a disadvantage. Does that mean you're doomed? No. You can still massively improve the look by building the frame, lateral delts, lats, and upper back. But if your waist is naturally wide, the classic tiny waist V-taper is simply harder to achieve. Short biceps. Short biceps insertions are another genetic trait that can be a disadvantage in bodybuilding, depending on what aesthetic you're aiming for. Muscle insertions refer to where the muscle belly attaches to the bone via the tendon. In the case of the biceps brachii, the length of the muscle belly is largely determined by genetics, and this affects how full the arm looks, especially when flexed. With short biceps insertions, the muscle belly sits higher on the upper arm, leaving a larger visible gap near the elbow. This often results in less overall muscle mass potential in the biceps and a less full look when the arm is relaxed. Studies on muscle architecture show that muscle belly length and tendon length are largely genetically determined and influence both hypertrophy potential and visual shape. You can increase thickness, but you can't change where the muscle starts and ends. From a bodybuilding standpoint, longer muscle bellies generally create a fuller, rounder look across the entire upper arm, which tends to score better in classic aesthetic standards. That said, short biceps insertions are not universally seen as bad. Some people actually prefer the look because it can create a more pronounced biceps peak when flexing. What do you think? Do you prefer longer or shorter biceps? And also, if you recognize any of these genetic disadvantages, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.